Good evening, campers, streamers, and babysitters, and welcome to our, I guess you call this reaction review, just discussion video on something quite surprising. This was not on my bingo card for 2025. This was not on my bingo card for, let alone July of 2025. But we actually got quite a surprise last night. I was scrolling on X, just, checking messages, checking things on there, seeing what's going on. And I see this little link for something called Leprechaun's Revenge, and I notice fuzz on the lens is, attached to it. Now, mind you, these are the folks who just did Screamboat. They are also part of the team that puts together the Terrifier films, and Stream as well. So there's quite a lot of crossover there, and I was like, man, I'm curious what this is. So I start watching it. I get maybe 5 minutes into it, and I stopped, and I immediately sent the link to Luke because I was like, holy crap, they're actually trying to just do a little proof of concept short film for a Leprechaun sequel.
Man, boy, what a happy surprise this was this morning. I checked this out as soon as I woke up at 6 a.m. to see what you were talking about because you had asked if we could do a video on it. And of course, I'm down for anything Leprechaun. So needless to say, I was my pants got a little tighter this morning while I was watching that because I will digest anything Leprechaun. It's been so long. I mean, we interviewed Felipe Vargas, what was it, last year? A little
Yeah,
over that.
last not this past I said Leprechaun's Day, not this past St. Patrick's Day, but the one prior.
And, he talked about being able to do Leprechaun, and instantly our ears perked up. We got excited about it. We wanted to hear all the details. Unfortunately, that's not going to be taking place, as we got some news a couple months ago. So we didn't really think anything of Leprechaun. Unfortunately, it's a property we want to see expanded upon because it's so fun. I think it gets overshadowed by a lot of the big boys, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees. It is in the horror space. It's just not one of those A properties that a general audience is clamoring for. Now, we always talk about it. I have a love. This was one of the pivotal films that started my horror journey. So I'm excited to see anything. And as soon as this popped up, knowing it was fuzz on the lens, my gosh, I was like, okay, maybe we're back in the game.
Maybe. And I was just overall, this was just a surprise. I had no idea this was coming out. There was no promotion for it. It's just literally where it is right now. And I think the thing that struck me the most, and as we're kind of breaking down this little 9-minute short here, there's a really surprising level of quality to a lot of this that, I think you've kind of come to expect when it's a short film like this, especially one that's based off of a major IP, that it's going to feel like out of place compared to everything else. Now, there's a couple of moments in here. There's a couple of aspects that don't feel top dollar, but I gotta say, I'm quite surprised at just how well this movie, like how well it feels in line with those early Leprechaun films.
It really does have a great handle on the tone. Leprechaun is one of those horror franchises that is just a lot of fun. The campier you get, the more in line it feels with the actual films itself. So I think looking at this short, I mean, it has a great handle on the tone and the funness of the franchise. When we talked to Felipe Vargas, we were like, okay, maybe it's going to be a little more serious. It's going to be a little different, but we know Leprechaun for being that fun franchise, just going in there, having a lot of gore, and those one-liners from Warwick Davis, they're all-timers. You always go back to them. It's an endless amount of rewatchability, and I think this short does fall into it. I've watched it 3 times already, and just kind of checking it out and drinking it in and watching those gore effects and some of the line delivery there. And I think, for a 9-minute short, it really does work. Would I love for this to be expanded upon? I think there's a lot of potential here. In what we could do. It's hard for me to critique a short because this is a side mission. This is like a bonus round for us. I love that Fuzz on the Lens is getting in the game and doing these shorts.
Yeah.
We don't own the property, but we want to have some fun. We want to kind of bring it back to the audience that really does have a love for it and has a good handle on it. I love that maybe production companies, this could be going forward something that they do of, hey, we're going to do these little shorts. We're going to bring these properties that we haven't seen in a very long time, just to kind of bring it out here, show the potential, maybe a little bit of a proof of concept to see if we can get a conversation going to see if maybe this property does pop back up in a feature-length film somewhere in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring up the director here. This is Michael Levy and his brother Jason Levy. So they're directing, co-directing, but both wrote this. And this I have a hard time believing that this didn't just spawn from working on Stream, because obviously Mark Holton is in Stream. If you're unaware, he has a bit part, not like a huge role, but he's there for probably about 10 minutes. You'd say, right, Luke? Like
Yeah, I would
maybe.
say around there.
And he's very memorable there. It was something that we were definitely excited to see him there playing alongside a bunch of other legacy horror actors. And this, though, I gotta say, even somebody who saw Leprechaun Returns a few years ago and enjoyed seeing him there, I don't know why, but I just feel like this is so much more in line with his character. I felt like all of the stuff they did with him up until he's dispatched by the Leprechaun, it was really, really good character stuff. I felt so much more in tune with Mark Holton's character this time around than I think I did in Returns. And I don't know necessarily why that is, but what it does tell me is that I think that these two have a really good handle on where we should go as far as like if we're going to bring back characters, or just in general how to get that original feeling back to the franchise.
Looking at Leprechaun Returns, and I wasn't expecting Mark Holton to be in that at all, and then when he popped up, I instantly got excited. And then, spoiler, he's gone very shortly after that.
Yeah, the first 15 minutes.
We don't really get anything with that character. And yeah, this is a 9-minute short of a film, but it feels like we cover way more mileage here. We're in the basement. We kind of get that connective tissue from the first one, seeing a little bit of that PTSD. We're not really moving on from that event, because how could you? It's a leprechaun that came to life and tried to rip your face off. And I love that aspect. I think the visuals down in the basement are very well done as well. I wasn't expecting, I love the glowing green, and kind of they're establishing some lore. We don't dive deep into it at all, and I would love to see how that works. And when we talk about kind of like a proof of concept, where I would love if, hypothetically, if Fuzzle and Lens got it and they're like, hey, we're going to do this Leprechaun movie, I think the idea needs to be we revisit Mark Holton living his life in this town. Leprechaun shows up, wanting his gold coin back, and that's the route we go. This kind of small town horror. And we make Mark Holton, Ozzie's character, we make that the main focus, because it has so much connective tissues. You can bring back some familiar faces, and I feel like that would be a true love letter to horror.
I agree, and I think that this definitely cemented that for me as well, considering you kind of have that 1-2 punch if you're a fan of the franchise, of seeing Returns and just being excited to see Mark Holton back, playing Ozzie, really bringing it back to him. Like I said, a little different, it felt there, but here, my favorite sequence in the short film through and through is the flashbacks. I love when he's just sitting in that chair and, he's going through the house and we're seeing all of the little itty bitty pieces that tie back to that original film that the brothers here were able to put on screen and be able to pay attention to and bring back. As a Leprechaun fan, it warmed my heart. And, I quickly realized once we got past that point and started going downstairs, what they were playing with and where they were going with. So I was honestly curious if we were even going to see the Leprechaun in its like full form. But boy, do we. And I got to say, I'm a little mixed on the performance here. I'm not going to beat it up too hard because, obviously it's a short film. They're working with a real limited budget. And yes, the prosthetics, I think, as Luke and I spoke beforehand here, may have had a role with that. But Luke, I'm going to let you take it away because you obviously were able to find some information on our Leprechaun there.
Yeah, now, during the conversations that are sparking from this, and I haven't been able to find anything to actually confirm if it is or not. They are saying, at least conversationally wise, that Leprechaun is from Leprechaun Returns. And I don't know if that's 100%. I did try to find, I don't think there's a cast list unless I overlooked it.
Not that I can find either. I tried last night and just as we're speaking here.
The actor from Leprechaun Returns is Lyndon Porco, and from Returns, that aspect, knowing we're not going to get Warwick Davis, at least in that film, I don't know if we would ever in the future if he'd be up for playing that role again. But I loved the performance in Leprechaun Returns for what it was. It's like, okay, we have to come to an agreement. We're not getting Warwick Davis. Let's separate that. We're getting something new. Let's see if that works.
It's really
And
grown on me, I would say, as the years have gone on.
yes, and I think this one here, when we don't get a ton, I will say I have a couple issues with the performance as well, but I think that might be going back to the makeup effects, just because one of the issues I had, it seemed like we couldn't really see his mouth move, and that was kind of like, Leprechaun's known for being so animated, and he was to an extent here. It just felt like the visuals weren't there 100%, but it seems like they've got the idea down for Leprechaun. I love them bringing the violin playing. I did have an issue with that. I do play the violin. He was not moving his fingers while he was playing the tune. So, I mean, what can you do about it? It's short. But, I love that, in the original, Shining Shoes was a great little bit. In this one,
Yeah.
it seems they lose a lot of that lore with the Leprechaun. They go into the kills, which is fine. But I love when they add that little mix to it. And I love him playing the violin and Ozzie just randomly dancing and him having kind of that entranced effect to him. So I like that aspect. I love that they played off each other. So I'd be eager to see more here if this is in fact the actor from Leprechaun Returns, because I think he did have a pretty decent performance there.
Yeah, and again, I'm a little mixed on it. I think like overall, like I've seen it twice, so it's something that I just don't know if I'm ever gonna fully not have that moment ever when I'm watching Leprechaun stuff where it's like, okay, they're getting close, but it's not Warwick Davis, and that's unfortunate. It's kind of just like the same issue I think we've had with like Nightmare on Elm Street for years, where one of the major reasons among many others that they don't want to just like full bore go into a new Nightmare on Elm Street movie is because, well, what are you going to do about Robert Englund? And it's kind of the same issue here. We've done it a couple of times now, and I think we're getting there. But this one, to me, it's like with this and Returns, I could easily say that this actor certainly deserves the props to be given another chance at playing the role. But I mean, if there was any way under the sun of getting, Warwick Davis back into this role, I mean, I'm sorry, but there's no other actors ever going to be able to, put a coin up to that performance for me.
Absolutely. And, we can always try different things. So why not have two
Mhm.
leprechauns in a
Right?
film at this point? You know what I mean? Like, we can really expand this universe. There's so much left on the table, I think, with the lore of Leprechaun and different avenues we can really go down. I think this opens up the conversation. I'm so glad that we got this short film here, just because the light's dimming, I think, for Leprechaun right now, at least for a bigger audience. I think really deep in the space horror fans are going to have a love for Leprechaun, especially if you grew up in the 90s in loving that franchise. But as a general audience, I think it's dimming a little bit just because we haven't seen a property in a very long time. And oddly enough, hey, we're getting Silent Night, Deadly Night. We're getting
True.
Toxic Avenger coming out. All these properties that we never thought were going to have any sort of life, but we are getting those in the theater, no less. So I'm interested to see if we can get the conversation going with Leprechaun. I think this is a great start, kind of refreshing everyone's memories of what we got from that original Leprechaun. Hey, we can wipe the slate clean if we want to, do a direct sequel if that's the route we want to go to, but we can really play with anything in this universe. When we're dealing with that supernatural, it's like, hey, everything's on the table.
Yeah, and I really think that overall, what this does for me is it just gets me excited again to see a real attempt, something that's done by fans, something that's done by people who truly do love the property, just like Luke and I do, who see the potential for it, even though, like we've joked about 100 times, it's like, yeah, it's gone to space, it's gone to the hood, it's gone all over the place. But seriously, I think there is still room to have, Leprechaun on the big screen or even the small screen. We talk about it constantly that it's like we want companies like Screambox and Shudder and stuff to start getting some of these, properties, because we can't just keep giving everything to Blumhouse. It's like we know what they're going to do with it. We know what they're going to make with it. It's going to work for some people. It's going to not work for others. And it's just one of those things where it's like, especially with kind of these, dare I say it, I hate to do this because I know a lot of Leprechaun fans are going to eat me up for this. The B and C tier villains certainly can wind up on streaming services and things like that and actually, give us something cool and fun. And I think the first step that you need to take there is to find a good creative voice behind it. And I think that's why Returns works pretty well, because, you know, you have a team that we're all familiar with. They've done things for like The Void and stuff like that. They've worked on that stuff and they had passion for it. This is that again, where it's like we have, you know, Michael and Jason Levy, two very passionate horror fans who want to do something with this property. And I'd be curious to ask them if this is just something they needed to kind of, you know, exercise from themselves and get out there, or if this was, you know, seriously an attempt to say, hey, Lionsgate, we're going to tag you in this a million times until somebody actually takes us seriously.
Absolutely, you know, and saying B and C level villains is not, you know, it's not nothing negative. I don't think where
No.
it's truly it's one of those things where Leprechaun unfortunately started going direct to DVD, and that's where it found its life. And yeah, a lot of horror fans did find the franchise. It just wasn't one of those big box office horror franchises that just everyone goes and checks out, which is totally fine. We need
It's
these,
a VHS rental store franchise. That's
and
exactly where it is. It's a Sci-Fi Channel franchise.
And those are some of the best properties. So I
Mhm.
think when you look at things like Leprechaun, when you look at Critters, those things are ripe to be dusted off and being brought straight to streaming for horror fans to just digest and really enjoy from the comfort of your own home, if that's the route they want to go. I think right now is the time. And we could talk about Fuzz on the Lens jumping into the game here. I mean, with we know what they produce with horror and in the gore aspects. I think the comedy that they do and creating some of these iconic concepts already. I'm eager to see what they're going to do with Stream 2. You know, we had Tony
Yeah.
Todd in that, you know, and it's like what they're going to do, how they're going to bring a fresh set of eyes and just breathe fresh air into a franchise. I think, again, this is a great start to the conversation. Leprechaun needs to be brought back. There is so much fun to be had. And yeah, I think this, to be honest, is the right team to do it.
I would agree. And, you know, I want to touch on some of that Fuzz on the Lens signature gore, because they certainly don't skimp on it here. You know, I was curious to see what they were going to do. Because, again, I was not wanting to watch Ozzie die again. I hated that in Returns. You know, it sucks to watch it because you love that character so much. But that is the route we go in this short film. And, man, I gotta say though, the effects are really good. Like for a short film, like the blood, you know, it looks great. The little sloshing out of his neck as after he hits him with the axe, and then honestly, just the decapitation in and of itself. For a short film, I'm pretty damn impressed that they were able to give us something of that quality. That feels straight out of a Terrifier movie, as far as the effects go.
I got those feels as well. And sometimes you get a short film that covers nothing, doesn't really give you any feels. I'll say this is the complete opposite, where we get that connective tissue. We get to see Ozzie back. We understand his PTSD from the event of the original. We get some fun lore with the Leprechaun and the violin playing. And then we get a lot of extreme gore, which you can't ask for more in 9 minutes of a short film. So I think this is really an interesting take already. And I could not fathom what we would get with an hour and a half with a team that does love the franchise, that has a good understanding of the franchise, and they're already serving us with 9 minutes. So I can't imagine what we would get elsewhere. And I think there's, again, a lot of fun to be had. This could be the team to do it. They have a great handle on it, it seems. And Leprechaun is just a franchise that is near and dear to my heart. And I'll say, when it comes to properties to be dusted off and that just don't get enough love, I'll say I think Leprechaun's at the top of the list.
Yeah, I would say Leprechaun. Even you mentioned them, Critters, Killer Clowns, Gremlins at this point. Like, there's a lot of these kind of properties that just were these little gemstones in all of our, you know, horror loving, like, as we grew up, like, you know, all the stuff we'd watch on TV. And this is certainly one of those. Like, I've always said on the channel here, Leprechaun was right up there with, you know, Pennywise, the clown, as being the thing, one of the very few things as a child that actually scared me. Because I'd watch all kinds of stuff and never get terrified, but something about Leprechaun, something about Pennywise, they really did me in on this. But I think the thing that I wanted to pose here as we're wrapping this conversation up is just when it comes to how they're presenting Leprechaun here, how they're presenting the gore and the blood and all that. I think this might have been the piece that this franchise has been missing to get it over the hump, to get it into the modern day. I hate to say it, guys, but like, you know, I'm all for subtlety. I'm all for, having films like the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the first, Halloween that are very bloodless. There's not a lot of blood in those movies, but obviously we love Art the Clown. It sells, it does well. A lot of this other like extremely brutal, bloody stuff is good. As long as the character is intact, as long as we actually have, a small kind of enclosed story that we can give a shit about, I say go as bloody as you want. Go full Terrifier here. Have Leprechaun take just a tiny little nod from the new age, master of horror that is Art the Clown at the moment, and let him go crazy. And if you're gonna do it, you gotta hire the guys who are doing Terrifier to do it. You know what I mean? Like, that just makes sense to me. And I don't know, watching him decapitate Ozzie again breaks my fucking heart. I hate it, but I gotta say, I was impressed. I loved it. I love the gag of him diving down his gullet and getting the gold coin. I was like, I hope this is where they end the short film. And boy, howdy, that's where they cut it. And I'm like, okay, I will watch this. I will get hankering to watch this over and over again, probably when I start watching my Leprechaun films every March.
It had a great mixture of comedy as well as gore. And I think that's how this franchise could thrive, where Leprechaun came out in the 90s, and we were kind of riding that wave of the running on fumes of the slasher subgenre. And then we kind of got into Scream, where we didn't really see a place for Leprechaun. And then in the mid 2000s, we were Hostel, Saw, all that type of stuff. But now it's after Terrifier, I think things have changed in landscape wise, where we want an extreme amount of gore, where it becomes oddly enough fun to have more gore and more over the top gore. And I think with Leprechaun delivering those one-liners, with giving us that extreme gore, these can be really serious, like one-off events, those Fathom events that we go to the theater for a 3-day thing, just to have a lot of fun. And I think that's where this could be the proving ground for the franchise, and say there's an audience showing up. And yes, it could start off small, but then, hey, we get 3 installments down the line, we start opening up those locations, and we start really getting a bigger audience, because you always have to point to Terrifier and say it started off small, now everyone talks about it, everyone knows who Art the Clown is. And I think Fuzz on the Lens, I think that the team, they could really bring prominence back to some of these smaller horror properties. I think Leprechaun is a perfect proving ground.
100%. But yeah, guys, that's going to wrap us up here for our thoughts on Leprechaun's Revenge. Let us know down below what you thought. I'm going to link the short film in the description so you guys can go right to it. Hopefully you've watched it after watching this or before watching this. Yeah, it's 9 minutes of just pure bliss. And again, quite a surprise. We didn't see this coming. I want to know your thoughts. Who do you want to see tackle Leprechaun? Do you guys want to see the Levy brothers take a shot at it in the big screen, like Luke said, on a Fathom events or a streaming service? Or do you have somebody else in mind? Are you upset that Felipe Vargas doesn't get his vision out there? I hope to get him back on eventually. I'd love for him to just be able to tell us what his story was going to be and what his thoughts were as almost this lost Leprechaun film. But I mean, he's going to do great things. So I think that if the studio's looking for a different vision, hey, maybe this is it. All you got to do is just listen to the fucking fans, Lionsgate. You're not doing that very much these days, but hey, do it. And, you'll just have Leprechaun up there with John Wick and all your other, popular franchises of which I can't name. John Wick and Leprechaun. Yes, dude.
What we need.
Yes. After Ballerina, like actually making a John Wick spinoff that's fucking great. I'm like, they can do anything with that franchise. Let's go. Keanu Reeves is the Leprechaun. Let's go.
Give him the hat.
I love it. But yeah, guys, definitely, again, fun, nice little treats. We're recording this here in the States on the 4th of July. So holidays, YouTube doesn't do well. So this is coming up a day later. So sorry if it's old news by now. But yeah, at least you got to hear our thoughts. So let us know down below. And until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.
Do the horror shit, gonna do it live. Cause Splattercast kick it every day they live. Splattercast, gonna smash your ass. Splattercast, gonna smash your ass. Splattercast, gonna smash your ass. Splattercast, gonna smash your ass.